This video is sponsored by OWC. Before we get started, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell to get notifications whenever we share a video. So I got the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip in a couple of days ago, and I spent the last 48 hours using this phone as my main device. And obviously that's not long enough for a full review by any means, so don't freak out. But it is long enough to give you some more of my initial thoughts on the device and how I've been using it in the real world. Now, when I last checked it out, it was at the Unpacked event. There were hundreds of people around me. They were all trying to get their hands on it, so you really couldn't get much more than just a few pictures of it opening and closing. But now, since it's mine and in my hands, I've been able to use it a lot more. There's also been a lot of news about the phone as consumers are starting to receive their devices, and some have already succumbed to some durability issues. So let's start with that, since that's what everyone seems to want more information on. For me personally, my device has been great so far, but I do have some concerns as always. Some users in cold weather areas received their phones, and when they went to fold them in half, the screen seemed to be kind of cracking in the middle near the hinge. So I live in Ohio, it's always freezing outside, and I do not want to test that outside in the cold, but having it day to day from in my car, during trips or being outside for a little bit and headed back inside, I haven't noticed any issues with that whatsoever with my display. Then we had Zach from Jerry Rig Everything. I'll leave a link to his videos somewhere here, but he basically did his teardowns and scratch tests as he normally does with new phones. And initially it seemed as if Samsung was kind of lying about the whole foldable glass claim that they made during the keynote, as the display was being scratched at a level 1 and 2, which usually means that's made up of plastic, just like the Galaxy Fold's display. For reference, normal glass scratches at around a level 6 or 7. He even used his fingernail to scratch the screen, and it left some pretty deep grooves. That's really concerning, especially since if you want to flip this phone open with one hand, you sort of have to get the process started with your thumb, and then you kind of press a little harder with your thumb and use that kind of swiping around the screen. And that's kind of how I get it open with one hand. Now, if your fingernails are pressing in on that display and you're swiping alongside, if they were any longer or sharper than they are now, I feel like it might scratch it. Thankfully, that has not been an issue for me whatsoever right now, but you can see that durability with folding phones is still a concern. Now, it turns out in a follow-up video, there is in fact some glass underneath the plastic layer, but the way Samsung portrayed the Z Flip, it's a bit misleading. It's not like having an iPhone 11 Pro Max with this Gorilla Glass all over the phone and then folding it in half. Obviously, that would break. There needs to be a layer of plastic over it, and then there is a very small layer of glass right underneath it, which is still pretty cool and a huge advancement in technology. It's still glass that's folding, but it's not quite what you might think it is. For me personally, again, my device has been perfectly fine over the last 48 hours. I did actually suffer a drop from about 4 feet in height, but the phone was folded and there were no dents, scratches, or any other physical damage, which is great news. But do keep in mind, this phone is incredibly slippery. It's just a fingerprint magnet because of all that glass, and it's really slippery. So when I put it down on a table, the table must have like the slightest slant to it. And after about 10 minutes, I heard it fall to the ground, so it must have just been slowly sliding off. So if you do get one of these phones, make sure you put it on a surface that isn't super slippery. The new hinge on this device already feels way better compared to when I checked out the Galaxy Fold last year. And if you put the Z Flip in your pocket with the potential of dust or debris getting inside, it really doesn't seem like that much of an issue like the Galaxy Fold. That had a lot of issues with dust getting under the display and then actually ruining the display over time, but I really haven't had that feeling with this phone so far. With all of that said, I am definitely able to appreciate the technology and engineering that went into this phone, all while saying I don't think it's the right choice for most people right now, especially since most average consumers don't really want to spend $1,400 on a device. But even with that premium price tag, and the durability issues aside, there are still some other shortcomings with the Z Flip. For starters, the specs and hardware do not seem worth the price tag. Even though performance has been great so far, and it's still running hardware from last year, which to be fair is light years better than the budget specs that Motorola included in the Razr phone, but a full HD display, old processor, and older camera technology might be a bit of a bummer for those who are looking for the best of the best. If you want that, it might be worth spending nearly the same amount on the Galaxy S20 Ultra, which is still absurdly priced, but you're getting a lot more bang for the buck. It just doesn't fold in half or look nearly as cool. As far as the cameras are concerned, we will have a full camera comparison between the Z Flip and the 11 Pro Max for reference alongside the S20 Ultra when our unit comes in. So subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss that video. But the main story right now for me with these cameras during my limited time, with the ultra wide and the wide angle lens that you do get, they're nearly identical to what was on the S10 from last year. And so pictures from that are good, but they're not great. You need really good lighting conditions to get some of those great photos. And even then, it's not always a guarantee. And you're still getting that weird skin smoothing effect that Samsung seems to do when you take a selfie. Next to those cameras is a little display that does have some functionality, but it's a bit of a bummer when you realize that there's plenty of room for a bigger display like what you see on the Razr. This little display is capable of showing and slightly interacting with notifications, controlling media playback, checking the time, date, and battery percentage, and you can use it as a mini viewfinder for taking selfies. Now that part is kind of cool. When you unfold it, you do get a nice 6.7-inch Super AMOLED display, and even though, as I mentioned before, it's only 1080p and not a QHD display, it's still very nice. The crease is definitely visible in the center, and sometimes you'll even notice it when you're swiping around, but for me, I don't really mind it at all. Some people seem to be making a bigger deal of that crease than it really is, but it just really doesn't bother me. You get very used to it. Now, the main new feature and appeal, other than folding the phone in half for the Z Flip and looking really cool while doing so, is the new Flex mode. And what that is Samsung is calling this when you have your phone folded in half, but slightly folded in half, not all the way. There's supposed to be some added functionality to this, but I'm starting to think that we're getting a little bit burned here. It could be early and some of these apps might need some updating, but when you're using the camera app, if you fold the flip, you'll see that the viewfinder kind of adjusts a little bit and it goes to the top half of that phone. And then the settings and the camera modes are adjusted towards the bottom. Now, if you're viewing the photos are at the top, and certain functions and features like being able to edit or delete the photos are at the bottom, and you can swipe across the bottom portion of the display to go through different photos. This really isn't that much different than just having your phone completely unfolded and swiping through photos or swiping through settings than you normally would on any other phone. And it took me a while to realize this, which is kind of sad, but I have not noticed any extreme differences. Now, with the YouTube app, Samsung showed off at the keynote that you're able to watch and comment at the same time. I can't quite get the app to work and look the same way that they showed off at the keynote, but you can still comment and watch videos on any other device if you don't go full screen. You just kind of swipe down and you'll find the comment section and the video is still playing at a smaller, display at the top, which, I don't know, I'm not seeing anything crazy here with having your phone in flex mode. The main thing I do like is being able to video call someone without having to hold the phone in my hand. If I'm at a desk, I can just place it down and adjust the hinge to the perfect level. And it's basically like, FaceTiming on a MacBook. It's able to adjust so that it's comfortable for you. Or if you're taking photos and videos, you basically have a built-in tripod when you're using flex mode. So that part is kind of cool. But none of these features to me are worth $1,400 for a phone that has older specs and durability issues. So really, it comes down to the wow factor or the coolness factor. The Z Flip does make me go wow, and it does look really cool. It's bending the laws of physics, kind of. Displays are not meant, and certainly glass displays, are not meant to be folded in half. But here we kind of have that happening. It's pretty cool, even though when I showed my wife, she just looked at me and said, why would I need that? And I feel like her sentiments are exactly what a lot of people that I might show who don't really care about having the best phone, they just need a phone to just do normal stuff, might think. Why do I need that? I do think reducing the footprint of the phone is really nice, and it is practical for someone who wants to reduce the footprint of a 6.7-inch phone to nearly in half. For me, I would prefer the functionality and the practicality of folding out your phone into a tablet. If this phone didn't have some of the durability concerns and was priced more aggressively, well then a lot of these thoughts and comments might change. But as of right now, aside from reducing the form factor of the phone and looking really cool folding your phone in half, that's really all you're getting for $1,400. Of course, I would love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below if you haven't already quit this video 2 minutes in and called me an Apple sheep. Before we end today's video, I do want to give you more information about today's sponsor, OWC. OWC offers a wide range of products for your Mac, like internal hard drives, SSDs, memory, Thunderbolt 3 docks, and much more. For mass storage options, this Thunder Bay 4 Mini packs a ton of storage into a desktop style device with 4 2.5-inch drive bays capable of holding up to 16 terabytes of data and offers pro-grade transfer speeds up to 1,556 megabits per second. There are also 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports on the back, capable of daisy chaining 5 additional Thunderbolt devices, and it runs nearly silent, like completely silent. This thing is surprisingly very quiet. This is the perfect option for you editors out there who want to store a ton of your raw footage and files on the Thunder Bay Mini 4 and maybe edit off of an external SSD or your built-in SSD. But I do think the Thunderbolt speeds that this thing offers is honestly capable of having some videos edited off of too. I highly recommend checking it out by clicking the link in the description for more information. This has been Dan with Mac Rumors. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you around in the next video.